I stood at the edge of the grand ballroom, watching my son Nathan adjust his bow tie for the 100th time. The Rivers family estate sprawled before us like something out of a magazine. Marble columns, crystal chandeliers, and enough flowers to stock a botanical garden. Everything screamed money, old money, the kind that came with expectations and judgments I'd grown accustomed to over the years. "Mom, you look beautiful," Nathan said, turning to me with that nervous smile I'd known since he was 5 and asking if the tooth fairy was real. I smoothed down my navy dress, simple, elegant, understated. Exactly how I preferred things. "You clean up pretty well yourself, sweetheart." He glanced around the opulent space, then back at me. "I know this is a lot. The Rivers family, they're your new family," I interrupted gently. "That's all that matters." But even as I said it, something twisted in my stomach. Not about the wealth. God knows I'd seen enough of that in my own life, though Nathan had no idea. It was something else, something I'd noticed in the 6 months since he'd introduced me to Olivia Rivers. The way her smile never quite reached her eyes when she looked at me. The subtle comments about my quaint apartment, my simple lifestyle. Nathan didn't know that my 2-bedroom condo was a choice, not a limitation. He didn't know about the penthouse I owned downtown, or the estate in Marin County I'd purchased but never moved into. To him, I was just Mom, the woman who'd raised him alone after Dad died, who'd worked late nights at what he thought was a small accounting firm. If only he knew that small accounting firm now controlled assets worth more than the entire Rivers fortune. But that was a conversation for another day. Today was about him, about the life he was choosing. "Nathan, there you are." Olivia's voice cut through the pre-ceremony calm like a perfectly manicured nail on glass. She glided toward us in her designer gown, a vision in white silk and diamonds. Beautiful, undeniably. Cold, absolutely. She air-kissed Nathan, careful not to smudge her lipstick, then turned to me with that practiced smile. "Grace, how lovely you look. That dress is so you." The pause before "you" said everything. Frumpy, boring, beneath her. "Thank you, Olivia. You look stunning." She preened, missing the genuine compliment in my words. She did look stunning, like a beautiful viper ready to strike. "Come, I must introduce you to everyone." She grabbed my arm with surprising force, her French manicure digging slightly into my skin. "The family is dying to meet Nathan's mother." I allowed myself to be led, Nathan trailing behind us with an apologetic look. The main reception area was already filling with guests, a who's who of California society. I recognized several faces from business journals and society pages, though none would recognize me. The beauty of keeping a low profile. Everyone, Olivia's voice rang out, commanding attention with the ease of someone who'd been doing it since birth. A cluster of elegantly dressed people turned our way. Her cousins, college friends, what looked like half of San Francisco's social elite. "I want you all to meet someone very special," she began, and for a moment I thought perhaps I'd misjudged her. Then her smile sharpened. "This is Grace, Nathan's mother. She's a bit of a bitter old hag, but we love her anyway." The laughter that followed felt like a physical blow. Not because the words hurt. I'd been called worse in boardrooms full of men who thought a widow couldn't possibly understand business. It was the casual cruelty of it, the way she'd waited until we were surrounded to strike. "Oh, Olivia, you're terrible," one of her cousins giggled, champagne flute in hand. "I'm just teasing. Grace knows I'm joking, don't you?" Olivia's grip on my arm tightened, a warning. I smiled, not the warm smile I saved for Nathan, or the genuine one I shared with my friend Martha. This was the smile I'd perfected over 10 years of building an empire, calm, controlled, giving nothing away. "Of course," I said softly. "See, she's a good sport. Though honestly, Grace, where did you find that dress? There's this adorable little vintage shop in the Mission that might have some things more suitable for you. More laughter. Nathan had been waylaid by one of Olivia's uncles, too far away to hear. Just as she'd planned, I'm sure. I appreciate the suggestion, I replied, my voice steady. Oh, and everyone, you'll love this. She lives in this tiny little condo in Oakland. Can you imagine? I told Nathan we'll have to do something about that after the honeymoon. Maybe find her something more appropriate. The group tittered again, and I saw it clearly. My future if I let this continue. Years of subtle jabs and not so subtle exclusions. Being treated like an embarrassment to be managed, a problem to be solved. Nathan caught between his wife and his mother, slowly pulling away to keep the peace. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd assumed my silence meant weakness. Well, we can't all marry into money, one of the cousins said with false sympathy. No, I agreed. Some of us prefer to earn it ourselves. A slight pause in the laughter. Olivia's eyes narrowed. Oh, Grace was an accountant, she explained to the group, as if I weren't standing right there. At some little firm. She's retired now, of course. At her age, it's probably for the best. I'm 58, I said mildly. Hardly ready for the nursing home. Of course not. I just meant, well, it must be nice to finally relax after all those years of adding numbers. The condescension dripped like honey. Around us, the pre-wedding festivities continued, servers weaving through with champagne, a string quartet playing softly, hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on a single-day celebration. All of it the Rivers family's way of displaying their power, their position. Grace actually still works. Nathan's voice cut through as he finally made his way over. She consults sometimes, don't you, Mom? Bless him for trying. Olivia's smile tightened. How industrious. Well, we should probably, Olivia. There you are. A booming voice interrupted. The photographer needs you for the man who entered stopped mid-sentence, his eyes landing on me. Charles Rivers, patriarch of the Rivers family, owner of Rivers Maritime Group, or rather, former owner, as of 3 months ago. He stood frozen in the doorway, his face cycling through confusion, recognition, and then something very close to fear. Wait, he said slowly. Grace? Grace Porter. The chatter around us dimmed. Olivia looked between us, confused. You two know each other? She asked. Charles walked closer, his eyes never leaving my face. You're the CEO of Porter and Wells Holdings. The silence that followed was deafening. Champagne flutes stopped midway to lips. The cousin who'd made the crack about marrying into money suddenly looked ill. Hello, Charles, I said calmly. It's nice to finally meet you in person. I don't understand, Olivia stammered. CEO of what? Porter and Wells Holdings, Charles repeated, his voice hollow. The investment firm that bought my company last quarter. I nodded politely. It was a strategic acquisition. Your father's company fits well with our maritime portfolio. Your maritime portfolio? Olivia's voice had gone up an octave. Among others, yes. The crowd around us began to whisper. Phones appeared discreetly, no doubt Googling Porter and Wells Holdings. I knew what they'd find. A privately held firm worth approximately $4.2 billion, with holdings in shipping, real estate, technology, and renewable energy. What they wouldn't find was my photo. I'd made sure of that. But you're Nathan's mother, Olivia said weakly. You live in Oakland. You're a retired accountant. I never said I was retired, I corrected gently. And I do live in Oakland. I like the neighborhood. Charles had recovered enough to extend his hand, which I shook briefly. Miss Porter, had I known you were Nathan's mother, would it have mattered? I asked. Would your daughter have been kinder? Would these people have laughed less when she called me a bitter old hag? The color drained from several faces. Olivia's cousin with the champagne looked like she might faint. That's the beauty of anonymity, Charles, I continued, my voice still soft, still controlled. You learn how people truly behave when they think you're powerless. Mom, Nathan said, his voice strangled. You own Porter and Wells? I turned to my son, my expression softening. We'll talk later, sweetheart. This is your day. No, he said, looking between Olivia and me. No, we'll talk now. You bought her father's company. You're a billionaire. The money isn't important, Nathan. Not important? Olivia's voice had gone shrill. You let all of us think. I let you show me exactly who you are, I said simply. The wedding coordinator appeared, looking harried. The ceremony is supposed to start in 15 minutes. There's not going to be a ceremony, Nathan said quietly. What? Olivia spun toward him. Nathan, don't be ridiculous. Just because your mother has some money? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Olivia, she owns your father's company. She's been listening to you mock her for months, call her names, treat her like she's beneath you, and she never said a word. I was joking. Tell him you know I was joking. Olivia grabbed my arm again, but this time I stepped back. Were you? I asked. Was it a joke when you told your bridesmaids that you'd have to train me to act appropriately at social functions? Was it funny when you suggested Nathan should limit my time with any future grandchildren so I wouldn't confuse them with my middle-class values? Nathan's face went white. She said, what? I'm sure she'll tell you it was all in fun, I said. Just like today was fun. The room had erupted into chaos. Guests whispered frantically. The wedding coordinator looked near tears, and Charles Rivers seemed to be calculating exactly how much power I now held over his family's legacy. Nathan. Olivia tried again, tears beginning to streak her perfect makeup. You can't call off our wedding because of this. I love you. Do you, he asked. Or do you love what you thought I represented? The son of a poor widow you could control and condescend to. That's not fair, isn't it? He pulled off his bow tie, the gesture somehow final. I need some air. He walked out, leaving Olivia standing in her designer gown, surrounded by flowers that cost more than most people's cars. She turned to me, her face ugly with rage. You did this, she hissed. You planned this. No, I said. You did this. I just refused to be your victim. I turned to go, then paused. Charles, we should schedule a meeting next week to discuss the transition. My assistant will be in touch. He nodded numbly. As I walked through the crowd, it parted like the Red Sea. No one met my eyes. The bitter old hag had shown her teeth, and they were sharper than anyone had imagined. I found Nathan outside, sitting on a marble bench overlooking the vineyard. I sat beside him, not speaking. Sometimes silence said more than words. 10 years, he finally asked. Since your father died? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? I considered my words carefully. At first, I was just trying to survive. The insurance money from your father's death, I invested it. One good decision led to another. By the time I realized what I'd built, you were in college, then starting your career. You were so proud of making it on your own, without help. I didn't want to take that from you. But I've been living a lie. No, I said firmly. You've been living your truth. Every accomplishment, every promotion, that was all you. I never interfered, never pulled strings. Your success is your own. He was quiet for a moment. I brought her into our lives. I'm so sorry, Mom. You fell in love, I said. There's no shame in that. I fell in love with an image, he corrected. The real Olivia. God, the things she must have said about you when I wasn't around. It doesn't matter now, doesn't it? She called you a bitter old hag in front of everyone. I smiled slightly. I've been called worse by better people. How are you so calm about this? Because anger is exhausting and I have a company to run tomorrow. He laughed despite himself, then grew serious again. What happens now? That's up to you. It's still your wedding day, technically. No, he said firmly. It's not. I can't marry someone who would treat my mother that way. Who would treat anyone that way. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun begin its descent over the valley. Inside, I could hear raised voices, damage control in full swing. By tomorrow, the society pages would be buzzing with the story. The Rivers family's reputation would take a hit. Olivia would spin it somehow, make herself the victim. None of it mattered. Mom, Nathan said eventually. Yes. Tell me about Porter and Wells. Tell me about what you built. So I did. I told him about the terrifying first days after his father's death, when I'd sat at our kitchen table with a life insurance check and a determination that we wouldn't just survive, we'd thrive. I explained how I'd started small, investing carefully, learning everything I could about markets and business. How the first acquisition had been a failing logistics company that I'd restructured and sold for 3 times what I'd paid. I told him about the late nights studying financial reports while he slept, the careful balance of being present for every school play and soccer game while building an empire in the margins, the advisors who dismissed me, the boards who'd underestimated me, the competitors who'd learned too late that silence didn't mean weakness. Martha Chin helped, I said. You remember her? She came to your college graduation. The lawyer? I thought she was just a family friend. She is. Also my chief legal counsel, and the only person who's known the truth from the beginning. Why keep it secret, though? Especially once I was grown. I thought about how to explain it. Power is most effective when it's not flaunted. The moment people know what you have, they change. They want things, expect things. They treat you differently. I wanted to be just Grace Porter, Nathan's mom. Not Grace Porter, CEO. But look what happened because of it. Olivia showed me exactly who she was. If she'd known about the money from the start, she would have been sweet as honey. We'd have had a different kind of problem. I feel like an idiot. Don't. You loved her. That's not foolish, it's human. My phone buzzed. Martha, no doubt, having heard about the implosion of the Rivers Porter wedding. I'd call her later. Mr. Porter? Miss Porter. The wedding coordinator appeared, looking frazzled. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we need to know what to do with everything. Nathan stood. Send the guests home. Donate the flowers to local hospitals. The food can go to shelters. The band and vendors should be paid in full. This isn't their fault. And Miss Rivers is no longer my concern, Nathan said firmly. The coordinator scurried away, and Nathan offered me his arm. Walk with me. We strolled through the vineyard, the setting sun painting everything gold. Behind us, the grand estate buzzed with the chaos of a collapsed wedding. Ahead, the path was uncertain but ours to choose. I'll need to find a new apartment, Nathan said eventually. Olivia and I were supposed to move in together after the honeymoon. Stay with me for a while, I offered. My Oakland condo has a guest room. Your tiny, embarrassing Oakland condo, he teased, and I was glad to hear humor creeping back into his voice. It's actually quite nice. 3 bedrooms, bay views. I just let people assume what they wanted. Do you do that a lot? Let people assume things. It's remarkable what people will tell you when they think you don't matter. We'd circled back to the main building, where guests were streaming out in various states of shock and excitement. Tomorrow, this would be the scandal of the season. The Rivers heiress left at the altar, the secret billionaire mother-in-law, the collapse of a society wedding. Let them talk. I'd weathered worse storms. Grace, Charles Rivers intercepted us near the valet station. Please, we need to discuss this. Olivia is devastated. Olivia is facing consequences, I corrected. There's a difference. She's young. She didn't mean she's 29, Charles. Old enough to know that cruelty has a cost. He shifted tactics, the businessman emerging. The acquisition papers for Rivers Maritime. Surely we can revisit some of the terms, given our new family connection? Nathan stiffened beside me, but I placed a calming hand on his arm. There is no family connection, I said evenly, and the acquisition is complete. Your company is in good hands, Charles. I'll ensure it thrives, but not because of any personal relationship, because it's good business. This is vindictive, he accused. No, I said. Vindictive would be leveraging the clause in our agreement about reputation damage to the parent company. Vindictive would be releasing the due diligence reports that showed some interesting discrepancies in your books. This is me choosing to walk away from your family drama and focus on running my business. His face went pale. You wouldn't. I won't, I agreed. Unless you give me a reason to. Good evening, Charles. We left him standing there, calculating his losses. In the car, Nathan was quiet until we reached the highway. The due diligence reports, were there really discrepancies? Minor ones. Nothing illegal, just creative accounting. Very common in family businesses. I had Martha handle it quietly during the acquisition. But you kept the information. I keep everything, I said. You never know when knowledge becomes necessary. That's kind of terrifying, Mom. That's business. We drove in silence for a while, the California hills rolling past. My phone had been buzzing nonstop. Martha, certainly, but also numbers I recognized as board members, business associates who'd somehow discovered the connection between Grace Porter, CEO, and Grace Porter, mother of the jilted groom. The news was traveling fast. I'm proud of you, I said suddenly. Nathan looked surprised. For what? For almost marrying a woman who despised my mother. For walking away when you realized the truth. That takes courage. It shouldn't have gotten that far. Love makes us blind sometimes. The important thing is that you saw clearly when it mattered. We pulled up to my building in Oakland, a converted historic structure with bay views that I'd bought 5 years ago. Not ostentatious, but hardly the tiny condo Olivia had sneered about. This is nice, Nathan said, looking around with new eyes. I like it. Come on, let's order Thai food and pretend this day didn't happen. But of course we couldn't pretend. As we waited for dinner, Nathan peppered me with questions about the business, about the years of secret empire building. I showed him photos from board meetings he thought were book clubs, explained how conferences he believed were accounting seminars were actually major industry events where I'd spoken, always carefully avoiding cameras. This is surreal, he said, scrolling through a Fortune article about Porter and Wells that carefully avoided showing my face per my standing request. My mom is one of the most powerful women in California, and I had no idea. You had no need to know, I said. It didn't change who I was to you. But it changes everything else. God, when I think about all the times Olivia made comments about money, about class, about breeding, let it go, I advised. Anger will eat you alive if you let it. How are you not angry? Who says I'm not? I smiled. I'm just very good at channeling it productively. My phone rang, Martha's ringtone. I answered on speaker. Grace, what the hell happened? I'm getting calls from every society reporter in the state. Did Charles Rivers really grovel at his daughter's wedding? He didn't grovel. He just recognized me. After his daughter called you, and I quote from 3 different sources, a bitter old hag. You work fast. I have to. The phone hasn't stopped ringing. How do you want to handle this? I considered. No statements. No interviews. Let them speculate. And Nathan, I looked at my son, is taking some time to regroup. The wedding is off, obviously. Obviously. Want me to handle the legal aspects. Please. And Martha, make sure Olivia doesn't try anything creative with shared assets or accounts. Already on it. I'll call you tomorrow with updates. After she hung up, Nathan shook his head. You two are like a well-oiled machine. We've had practice. Martha's been with me since the beginning. Why her? How did you know to trust her? She was the only lawyer who didn't talk down to me when I was a widow with insurance money and big dreams. She treated me like a future CEO when everyone else saw a grieving housewife. Loyalty like that is rare. The food arrived, and we ate quietly, both processing the day. Outside, night had fallen over the bay, lights twinkling on the water. It was peaceful, a stark contrast to the chaos we'd left behind in Napa. What happens Monday? Nathan asked eventually. I go to work. You go to work. Life continues. But everyone will know now. About you, about the money, about everything. Yes, I agreed. The secret's out. That brings its own challenges. I'm sorry I caused this. You didn't cause anything. You fell in love. The fact that she turned out to be... I searched for words that weren't too harsh. A gold-digging social climber who insulted my mother. Nathan supplied. I was going to say unsuitable, but your version works too. He laughed. The first genuine laugh I'd heard from him all day. I'm an idiot. You're human. There's a difference. What would Dad have thought of all this? The question caught me off guard. Your father? He would have been proud of you for standing up for what's right. And he would have laughed himself sick at Charles Rivers' face when he realized who I was. He would have been proud of you too. Building all this. I hope so. I rarely talked about David, even with Nathan. The grief had mellowed over the years, but never fully disappeared. He always believed I was capable of more than I knew. Apparently he was right. My phone buzzed with a text from Martha. Rivers' family requesting emergency meeting tomorrow. Charles is panicking about the acquisition terms. Want me to stall? I showed Nathan. What do you think? Make them sweat, he said immediately, then looked surprised at his own vindictiveness. You might have a talent for this, I observed. Genetics, probably. I texted back. Tell them I'm unavailable until Wednesday. Regular business hours only. You're enjoying this, Nathan accused. Perhaps a little, I admitted. 10 years of building something in secret, and the reveal happens because someone called me a bitter old hag. There's some poetic justice in that. Expensive poetry. That wedding cost. I know exactly what it cost, I interrupted. Charles Rivers took out a loan against his company's shares to pay for it. Shares that are now worth considerably less since the acquisition. Nathan's eyes widened. You knew about the loan? I know everything about anyone I do business with. It's called due diligence. That's wow. Olivia always bragged about how her father was paying for everything, making it seem like they were so wealthy. Appearances can be deceiving. The Rivers family has old money, yes, but most of it is tied up in assets. The company was their main liquid wealth, and now you own it. Now Porter and Wells owns it, I corrected. And we'll run it better than Charles ever did. You're a little scary, Mom. Good. A little fear keeps people honest. We talked late into the night, years of secrets unspooling between us. I told him about the early days, the sexism I'd faced, the assumptions people made. The times I'd wanted to reveal myself but held back, knowing that anonymity was its own form of power. But why stay hidden so long, he pressed. You could have been on magazine covers, giving interviews, being recognized for what you built. Recognition is overrated, I said. Results matter. Legacy matters. Magazine covers are just ego. And you don't have an ego? Of course I do. I just feed it differently. Every successful acquisition, every company turned around, every job created, that's what satisfies me. Not photo shoots. What about now? The secret's out. Then I'll adapt. I always do. Sunday came with a media storm. My building security called to report photographers at the entrance. Martha fielded calls from reporters, business journals, society pages. The story had everything they loved. Wealth, scandal, a wedding disaster, secret identities revealed. You're trending on Twitter, Nathan reported. scrolling through his phone. I don't know what that means, and I don't want to. Someone got video of Charles recognizing you. It's viral. Wonderful, I said dryly. My 15 minutes of fame, courtesy of Olivia Rivers. Former almost daughter-in-law, Nathan corrected. Thank God. Speaking of which, has she tried to contact you? 47 texts, 18 calls, and one very long email about how this is all a misunderstanding and she loves me for me, not money. Do you believe her? Not for a second. Especially since text number 32 mentioned that she's always supported my career and deserves to be part of our family's success. Our family, I mused. Interesting how it's our family money, but I was just a bitter old hag when she thought I had nothing. I'm changing my phone number tomorrow. Good decision. Martha arrived that afternoon with a stack of documents and a grim expression. The Rivers family is in full damage control mode, she reported. Charles is telling anyone who'll listen that this was all a misunderstanding, that Olivia was joking, that they've always respected you. How nice for them. He's also trying to renegotiate the acquisition terms. Claims you took advantage of his financial distress. Did I? No. You paid fair market value. Actually, slightly above, because you wanted the employees protected during the transition. Then he has no case. None. But he's making noise about challenging it anyway. Pride, mostly. Let him. It'll cost him more in legal fees than he'll ever recover. Nathan listened to us strategize, fascinated. Is this what your work is always like? Usually less dramatic, I admitted. Most acquisitions don't involve wedding disasters and public humiliation. Most acquisitions aren't personal, Martha added. This one is. No, I corrected. It's not. That's what Charles doesn't understand. The acquisition was just business. His daughter making it personal was her choice. And the consequences, Martha asked, are hers to bear. Monday morning arrived with the inevitable. My assistant, one of the few who'd always known my identity, called early. The board wants an emergency meeting, she reported. They're concerned about the media attention. Of course they are. Schedule it for this afternoon. Full board, no exceptions. Are you prepared for this? Elena, I've been preparing for this for 10 years. I'm ready. I dressed carefully, my best suit, the one I wore for major negotiations. Nathan was already up, making coffee in my kitchen. Big day, he asked. The board's nervous. Secret CEOs suddenly in the spotlight make investors twitchy. Will they try to push you out? They can try. I smiled. But I own 42% of the company. They'll need a very good reason. And if they find one, then I'll remind them that our stock value has increased 800% under my leadership. Money talks louder than gossip. You're really not worried? Worry is unproductive. Preparation is better. I left him with a kiss on the forehead and headed to the office, not the small branch office where I usually worked, but the main headquarters downtown. Employees stared as I walked through the lobby. Some had known, most hadn't. The whispers followed me to the executive elevator. The boardroom was full when I arrived. 12 faces, some supportive, some skeptical, all concerned. Grace, the board chair, William Chun, no relation to Martha, began. We need to discuss the events of this weekend. Of course. I took my seat at the head of the table. What specifically concerns you? The media attention, for starters. Porter and Wells has always maintained a low profile. This kind of scandal, what scandal? I interrupted calmly. A wedding was called off. It happens every day. You were publicly insulted by the daughter of a man whose company we just acquired. There are questions about the timing, about potential conflicts of interest, all of which Martha Chun has already addressed in the memo I'm sure you've all received. I nodded to Martha, who sat to my right. The acquisition was completed 3 months ago, long before I met Olivia Rivers. The terms were standard, the price fair. Charles Rivers is upset because his daughter's behavior has consequences, not because of any business impropriety. But the optics are temporary. By next week, there will be a new scandal for people to discuss. Our fundamentals remain strong, our strategy unchanged. You've been operating in secret for a decade, another board member interjected. How do we know there aren't other surprises waiting? Because you have full access to our books, our deals, our operations. Nothing has been hidden from the board, only from the public. And that was a strategic choice that served us well. Until now. Even now. Do you know how many calls I've received since Saturday? Not from gossip columnists, from CEOs, from investors, from people who suddenly realize that Porter & Wells isn't just another firm. We're the firm that operates so efficiently. Our CEO can run an empire without anyone knowing. That's not a weakness, it's a selling point. The meeting continued for 2 hours. I fielded every question, addressed every concern, turned every negative into a potential positive. By the end, even the skeptics were nodding. One more thing, William said as we wrapped up. The river situation. How do we handle it going forward? Professionally, I said. Charles Rivers remains CEO of Rivers Maritime under our ownership, as agreed. His performance will be evaluated on merit, not personal drama. If he can't separate the two, we'll find someone who can. And if he continues to make noise about the acquisition, then we'll let our lawyers handle it. Quietly, efficiently, the way we handle everything. The board dispersed, satisfied for now. Martha lingered. Nicely done, she said. You almost convinced me you don't care about the personal aspect. I care, I admitted. But caring and acting on it are different things. And Nathan? How's he handling it? Better than expected. He's strong. He gets that from his father. And the strategic thinking? That might be from me. Tuesday brought more of the same. Media requests, business calls, the ongoing fallout from a society wedding gone wrong. But also something unexpected. A hand-delivered letter to my office, expensive stationery, familiar handwriting. Dear Grace, it read. I know you have no reason to read this, but I hope you will. I'm sorry, not for the cameras or the scandal, but genuinely sorry for how I treated you. I let my upbringing, my prejudices, my own insecurities turn me into someone cruel. You didn't deserve that. Nathan didn't deserve that. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I understand now what I lost. Not money or status, but the chance to be part of a real family. The bitter old hag comment will haunt me forever, not because it was caught on video, but because I said it at all. You're not bitter. You're brilliant. And I'm the one who's bitter now, knowing I threw away something precious for the approval of people who don't matter. I wish you and Nathan every happiness. Olivia. I read it twice, then handed it to Martha. Thoughts? I asked. Could be genuine. Could be strategy. Hard to tell. Nathan should see it either way. You're going to let him decide? It's his life. His choice. That evening, I showed Nathan the letter. He read it silently, his expression unreadable. What do you think? I asked. I think she's scared, he said finally. Her father's probably putting pressure on her to fix this, to get back in our good graces. That's cynical. That's learned behavior. From you, actually. I've created a monster. A careful monster, he corrected. Do you think she means it? I considered the question. I think she might. Losing everything has a way of clarifying what matters, but meaning it and changing are two different things. Should I respond? That's your decision. But whatever you decide, do it for you, not for her or me or anyone else. He folded the letter carefully. Maybe someday. Not today. Fair enough. Wednesday's meeting with Charles Rivers was held at Porter & Wells headquarters. He arrived 15 minutes early, looking haggard. The man who'd walked into his daughter's wedding with supreme confidence now sat across from me, like a student called to the principal's office. "Thank you for seeing me," he began. "This is a business meeting, Charles. Let's keep it professional." Of course, I wanted to discuss the transition plans for Rivers Maritime. What about them? Everything is proceeding according to schedule. Yes, but given the circumstances, I thought perhaps we could revisit some of the management structures. The circumstances being that your daughter insulted me and my son called off the wedding. He flinched. "Grace, I'm sorry about what Olivia said. She was raised better than that." Was she? Because she seemed quite comfortable with casual cruelty. "She's young, she's nearly 30. I was running a household and raising a child at her age. Youth isn't an excuse for malice." He shifted tactics. "The employees at Rivers Maritime are concerned about the transition. Morale is low. Because of the acquisition or because their CEO's family drama is front page news? Both, perhaps." I pulled out a folder. "I have reports from our transition team. Morale was actually improving until this weekend. Your employees were excited about the resources and opportunities Porter and Wells could provide. If morale is suffering now, that's a leadership issue." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that if you can't separate your personal embarrassment from your professional responsibilities, we'll need to accelerate the leadership transition." "You're threatening to fire me?" "I'm offering you the opportunity to prove you can do your job despite personal setbacks. The same opportunity one give all our executives. This is punishment for Olivia." "No," I said firmly. "This is business. Your daughter is irrelevant to Rivers Maritime's operations. If you can't see that, you're not the leader the company needs." He absorbed that, his jaw working. "What do you want from me?" "Excellence. The same thing I want from every employee. Deliver that and we'll have no problems. Let personal drama affect performance and we'll make changes. Simple. And Olivia is not my concern, nor should she be yours during business hours. She's my daughter, and Nathan is my son. But you don't see me letting that affect my decisions here. Don't you?" This meeting feels very much like a mother defending her child. I leaned back, studying him. "Charles, let me be very clear. If I wanted to destroy you for what happened Saturday, you'd already be gone. Your company's debt structure gave me several options for immediate termination with cause. The creative accounting your CFO has been doing, yes, I know about that too, could trigger clawback provisions. I could have you out of your office by lunch." His face had gone pale again. "But I won't," I continued, "because despite your daughter's behavior and your current emotional state, you're actually a decent CEO. Rivers Maritime needs stability during the transition. So I'm giving you a chance. Don't waste it." "I thank you." "Don't thank me. Just do your job." He left looking simultaneously relieved and terrified. Martha, who'd been taking notes, shook her head. "You let him off easy." "Did I? He'll spend every day wondering when the other shoe will drop. Sometimes mercy is its own punishment. Machiavelli would be proud. Machiavelli never had to deal with California corporate law." Thursday brought an unexpected visitor. Elena showed a young woman into my office, mid-20s, professionally dressed, nervous. "Miss Porter? I'm Sarah Chun from the San Francisco Business Journal. I know you don't usually give interviews, but then why are you here?" "Because the story everyone's telling is wrong." She pulled out a tablet. "Every article focuses on the drama, the wedding, the family conflict. But the real story is what you built. A woman who lost her husband, raised a son alone, and quietly created one of the most successful investment firms in the country. That's the story that matters. I studied her. Young, earnest, probably fresh out of journalism school. And you think you can tell that story? I'd like to try. One interview. Focus on the business, not the personal." My personal and professional lives just collided very publicly. How do you separate them? By acknowledging that collision and then moving past it. You've spent 10 years building something remarkable. Don't let one bad wedding define it. She had a point. Martha nodded slightly, her signal that it might be worth considering. 1 hour, I said. Business focus only. You can fact check with Martha before publication. Thank you. Can we start with why you chose to remain anonymous for so long? So I told her, not about Olivia or the wedding, but about the early days. The assumptions people made when a widow walked into investment meetings. The way anonymity let me work without the weight of others' expectations or prejudices. It wasn't about secrecy, I explained. It was about efficiency. Every meeting where someone underestimated me was an advantage. Every deal where the other party thought they were negotiating with a mid-level executive instead of the CEO gave me leverage. But didn't you want recognition? Credit for what you built. Credit is overrated. Results matter. My employees have good jobs. My investors see returns. The companies we acquire thrive. That's my credit. And now that anonymity is gone, then I adapt. Business is about evolution, not stasis. She asked smart questions, took careful notes. When our hour was up, she had enough for a real story. One about building something from grief, about strategic thinking and long-term planning. One last question, she said as she packed up. Do you really not care about the personal side? Your son's wedding was ruined. You were publicly insulted. That has to hurt. Of course it hurts, I admitted. But dwelling on hurt doesn't fix anything. I can be wounded, or I can be effective. I choose effective. Is that what you'd tell other women in business? Choose effectiveness over emotion. I'd tell them that emotion and effectiveness aren't mutually exclusive. I built this company because I was emotional, grieving, scared, determined to provide for my son. I channeled those emotions into action. That's different from being controlled by them. She left with her story, and I felt oddly lighter. Telling even part of the truth to someone who wanted to hear about more than scandal was refreshing. Friday afternoon, Nathan stopped by the office. He rarely visited. One of the ways we'd maintained our separate lives. Impressive, he said, looking around the executive floor. Very CEO-ish. I'll take that as a compliment. Mom, I've been thinking. About Olivia, about the letter, about everything. And I want to meet with her. Once. Closure, I guess. Are you sure? No. But I think I need to do it anyway. Do you want me there? God, no. That would be no. This needs to be just us. Fair enough. Be careful, Nathan. People in desperate situations sometimes make desperate choices. I know. I learned from the best, remember? He left to arrange his meeting, and I turned back to the work that never stopped. 3 new potential acquisitions to evaluate, a board presentation to prepare, the 1,000 daily decisions that kept an empire running. Martha knocked and entered. The Business Journal article will run Monday. Saracen did a good job. Professional focus. Minimal mention of the wedding drama. Good. Maybe that will shift the narrative. Maybe. Also, Charles Rivers has apparently been a model executive all week. No complaints from the transition team. Fear is a powerful motivator. Is that really how you want to run things? Through fear. I run things through competence, I corrected. But a little fear keeps people sharp. Remind me never to get on your bad side. You're one of the few people who's seen my bad side and lived to tell about it. Lucky me. She paused. Nathan's meeting with Olivia. This evening, apparently. You're worried. I'm always worried about him. It's the mother's curse. And if she hurts him again, then she'll learn that last weekend was me being restrained. The weekend passed quietly. Nathan didn't share details of his meeting with Olivia, just said it went fine, and changed the subject. I didn't push. He'd tell me when he was ready or he wouldn't. Either way, It was his story to share. Monday's Business Journal article was everything Sarah Chun had promised. A focus on the business journey, the strategic decisions, the quiet empire building. She titled it The CEO in the Shadows, Grace Porter's Decade of Strategic Silence. Much better than bitter old hag billionaire, Martha observed, reading over my shoulder. The bar was pretty low. Still, this is the narrative shifting. By next week, the wedding will be a footnote. She was right. The article sparked a different kind of interest, business schools wanting case studies, women's leadership groups requesting speeches, serious journalists wanting to explore the anonymity angle. You could write a book, Elena suggested, sorting through the requests. Women in business, overcoming tragedy, building empires. Very inspirational. I don't do inspirational. You kind of do, though. Quietly. The best inspiration is success. Everything else is just talk. Tuesday brought another surprise. Charles Rivers requested a second meeting, this time bringing his CFO and transition team. We've completed the first phase of integration, he reported, professional to his fingertips. Employee retention is at 92%. Productivity is up 8%, and we're ahead of schedule on the systems migration. Excellent. And the creative accounting. His CFO shifted uncomfortably. We've implemented the new reporting standards. Everything is transparent now. Good. Transparency builds trust. The meeting continued. All business, no mention of family drama. Charles was proving he could separate personal from professional. Maybe there was hope for Rivers Maritime after all. As they prepared to leave, Charles lingered. Grace, I wanted to say, professionally, that your team's approach to this acquisition has been exemplary. Other firms would have come in heavy-handed, but you've respected our culture while improving our operations. That's how sustainable growth works. Destroy the culture, destroy the value. Still, thank you. He left, and Martha raised an eyebrow. Was that an olive branch? That was a professional acknowledging professional competence. Nothing more. If you say so. Wednesday, Nathan called during lunch. Mom, I have news. I got the promotion. Senior analyst? Nathan, that's wonderful. My boss said my handling of recent personal challenges showed maturity and professionalism. I think he was dancing around the wedding disaster. You handled it well. You should be proud. I learned from you. Stay calm. Think strategically. Don't let emotion drive decisions. And how are you doing emotionally? Really? A pause. Better. The meeting with Olivia helped. She's trying to change. Whether she can is another question, but at least she recognizes what she did wrong. That's a start. Yeah. Mom, thanks. For everything. For building what you built. For showing me strength. For being you. Always, I said softly. That's what mothers do. After we hung up, I sat quietly in my office, looking out at the city I'd conquered without anyone knowing. The bitter old hag comments still echoed sometimes, but fainter now, overwhelmed by the sound of success. My phone buzzed. Another acquisition opportunity, this one in renewable energy. I opened the file, already strategizing. The empire would continue to grow, publicly now instead of in shadows. But first, I had a company to run, deals to make, a legacy to build. The world knew Grace Porter now, CEO, billionaire, mother. Let them know. I had work to do. The intercom buzzed. Miss Porter, your 2:00 is here. Send them in. Back to business. Always back to business. It's what I did best. The meeting was with a startup founder, nervous and eager, reminding me of myself 10 years ago. She pitched her company with passion, stumbling over numbers but clear on vision. Why should Porter and Wells invest? I asked when she finished. Because you understand building something from nothing. Because you know what it's like to be underestimated. Because we're going to change how people think about sustainable packaging. Good answer. Honest, direct, appealing to shared experience rather than just numbers. Send me a full proposal. We'll do due diligence. If the numbers work, we'll talk terms. Her face lit up. Really? Just like that? Nothing in business is just like that. But you've earned a closer look. She left walking on air. Martha, who'd observed, smiled. You're getting soft. The old Grace would have grilled her for another hour. The old Grace didn't have her secret blown by a society wedding. Adaptation, remember? Speaking of which, you have the Women in Leadership Summit next month. Still planning to decline. I considered. A month ago, I would have automatically said no. But things had changed. I smiled, remembering Olivia's sneer, Charles's surprise, the world's shock at discovering where the billionaire CEO actually lived. Let them wonder. Let them judge. I knew who I was, what I'd built, where I was going. Everything else was just noise. I entered my home, kicked off my heels, and poured a glass of wine. Outside, the bay sparkled with reflected light. Somewhere, a wedding was probably happening, hopefully with less drama than the last one I'd attended. To Nathan, I thought, raising my glass to the window. To Martha. To everyone who'd seen past the surface to the steel beneath. And yes, even to Olivia, who'd given me the gift of revealing herself so completely. But mostly to David, whose death had started this journey, who'd believed I was capable of more than I knew. Who would have laughed at the bitter old hag comment and told me to buy their whole damn company in response? Which in a way I had. I smiled, sipping my wine, planning tomorrow's battles. The empire would continue to grow, publicly now, but with the same strategic thinking that had built it in secret. The world knew Grace Porter now. Let them try to handle her. The night was young, the future was bright. And somewhere in the city, my son was learning to build his own life with the tools I'd given him. Strength, strategy, and the absolute refusal to let anyone make him feel less than he was. Not bad for a bitter old hag. Not bad at all. I settled into my favorite chair with my laptop, pulling up the quarterly reports that never stopped coming. The numbers told stories of growth, of potential, of opportunities waiting to be seized. This was my language, my world, my creation. A notification popped up, an email from Charles Rivers. The subject line read, "A professional and personal thank you." I opened it, curious despite myself. Grace, I wanted to reach out one final time, both as the CEO of Rivers Maritime and as Olivia's father. Professionally, your team's handling of our acquisition has been exemplary. You've kept every promise, protected our employees, and positioned us for growth I couldn't have achieved alone. I'm grateful. Personally, I'm deeply sorry for what happened at the wedding. I've had long conversations with Olivia about values, about kindness, about judging people by their character rather than their perceived status. She's learning hard lessons, but necessary ones. You asked me once if I would have treated you differently had I known who you were from the start. The honest answer shames me. Yes, I would have. That's my failure, not yours. You've taught me something valuable about assumptions and respect. I hope Nathan is well. He's fortunate to have you as a mother. With sincere respect, Charles Rivers. I read it twice, then filed it away. People could change, given the right motivation. Whether Charles and Olivia would truly transform remained to be seen, but at least they were trying. Another email caught my eye from the Women in Leadership Summit. Dear Miss Porter, we're thrilled you've accepted our invitation to speak. Your story of building Porter and Wells Holdings while maintaining complete anonymity has captivated the business community. We'd particularly love to hear your thoughts on strategic thinking in male-dominated industries, building from loss and grief, the power of patience in business, why recognition isn't the goal the summit expects 2,000 attendees, all eager to learn from your journey. 2,000 people wanting to hear from the bitter old hag. Life had a sense of humor. I drafted a quick response, accepting their topics and adding one more: the strength in silence, why your work should speak louder than your presence. Because that was the real lesson, wasn't it? Not that I'd built an empire in secret, but that the empire stood on its own merits. My name attached to it now didn't make it more valuable. The value had always been there in the jobs created, the companies saved, the strategic decisions that turned possibilities into profits. My phone rang, Martha, even though it was past 9. Still working, she asked. Always. You. Just finished reviewing the renewable energy proposal. It's solid. Want my full analysis tonight or tomorrow? Tomorrow's fine. Go home, Martha. Have a life, says the woman answering emails at 9:30. Do as I say, not as I do. Story of our partnership. She paused. Grace, I'm proud of you. How you handled this whole situation. Lesser people would have gone scorched earth. Scorched earth leaves nothing to build on. I prefer strategic victories. And that's why you're the CEO and I'm just the lawyer. You're never just anything, Martha. You're the reason I could build this without drowning in legal challenges. Mutual Admiration Society. Then, see you Monday. After she hung up, I returned to my reports, but my mind wandered. 10 years of Fridays like this, quiet work, strategic planning, building tomorrow's success on today's decisions. The only difference now was that people knew who was making those decisions. A text from Nathan interrupted my thoughts. Can't wait for Sunday dinner. I have news. Good news, I think. Maybe. We'll see. Cryptic, but that was Nathan. He'd share when he was ready, not before. I'd taught him that the power of holding information until the right moment. Looking forward to it, I texted back. Any dietary restrictions I should know about? Just no wedding cake. Too soon. I laughed despite myself. If he could joke about it, he was healing. The clock struck 10, and I finally closed my laptop. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new tests. But tonight had brought something else, a sense of completion. Not ending, but evolution. The secret CEO had become the public face of Porter & Wells Holdings, and the world hadn't ended. If anything, it had expanded. I prepared for bed, running through my mental checklist for tomorrow. Call with the Tokyo office at 6 a.m. Breakfast with the renewable energy founders at 8. Board prep at 10. Lunch with the mayor's chief of staff about the waterfront development project. 3 acquisition reviews in the afternoon. Dinner with my management team to discuss expansion into European markets. A full day, a good day, a day of building and growing and strategic thinking. No time for bitter old hags, only for CEOs with empires to run. My last thought before sleep was of David, as it often was. I did it, I whispered to the darkness. Built something from nothing, raised our son to be strong and smart and kind. Faced down the people who tried to diminish me and came out stronger. You were right, I was capable of more than I knew. The darkness didn't answer, but then it didn't need to. The answer was in the empire I'd built, the son I'd raised, the respect I'd earned through work rather than words. Let them call me whatever they wanted. I knew who I was. Grace Porter, CEO, mother, builder of empires, and definitely not anyone's bitter old hag. The night settled around me, peaceful and full of promise. Tomorrow would come with its challenges and opportunities, but tonight I'd won. Not through anger or revenge, but through patience, strategy, and the simple refusal to be made small by small people. It was, I thought, as sleep finally claimed me, a very good way to build an empire, and an even better way to live a life. Saturday morning arrived with fog rolling across the bay, the kind that made the world feel smaller, more intimate. I was up at 5, Habit more than necessity. Reviewing the Tokyo call notes when my phone buzzed. Nathan, at 5:47 a.m. Everything okay? I answered, immediately alert. Yeah. Sorry, I know it's early. Couldn't sleep. Mom, I've been thinking about something all night. What's on your mind? I want to learn the business, not join Porter and Wells. I meant what I said about liking my job. But I want to understand what you do, how you think, why you make the choices you make. Would you be willing to teach me? I set down my coffee, touched by the request. Of course. But why now? Because I spent 3 years with someone who saw you as beneath her, and I never defended you properly because I didn't really see you either. Not fully. I saw Mom, but not the CEO, not the strategist, not the empire builder. I want to see all of it. Nathan, and he continued, because one day I might want to build something of my own. And I'd like to learn from the best. Flattery will get you everywhere, I said, but my voice was thick with emotion. It's not flattery if it's true. So will you teach me? We'll start tomorrow at dinner. Bring a notebook. Already bought one. See you then, Mom. And thank you. After he hung up, I sat in the pre-dawn quiet, processing this unexpected gift. My son wanted to learn not just about my business, but about me, the parts I'd kept hidden, the strategies I'd never shared. It felt like another kind of victory, quieter but perhaps more meaningful than any acquisition. The Tokyo call went smoothly. Our Japanese partners were pleased with the quarterly numbers and eager to discuss expansion into South Korea. I took notes, already strategizing, when my assistant messaged. Ms. Porter, there's been a development. Olivia Rivers has given an interview to the Chronicle. It's interesting. I pulled up the article, bracing myself. But what I found surprised me. I was the villain in my own story. An apology read the headline. The interview was remarkably candid. Olivia admitted to her behavior, her prejudices, her treatment of me. She didn't make excuses or blame others. She simply owned her actions and their consequences. I called my future mother-in-law a bitter old hag, she was quoted as saying. I thought I was being clever, putting her in her place. Instead, I revealed my own character, and it wasn't pretty. Grace Porter showed me what real class looks like. It's not about money or status. It's about how you treat people when you think they can't fight back. The article went on, detailing her efforts to understand her own biases, her work with a therapist, her gradual recognition of the damage wealth without wisdom could cause. I don't expect forgiveness, she concluded. I just want other people from my background to read this and think twice before they dismiss someone based on appearances. You never know who you're talking to. More importantly, it shouldn't matter. Kindness shouldn't be conditional on someone's net worth. I read it twice, then forwarded it to Nathan without comment. His response came quickly, I saw. We talked about her doing this when we met. I didn't think she'd follow through. People can surprise you, I typed back. Yeah. You taught me that. The morning proceeded with its usual rhythm. Emails, calls, decisions. But something had shifted. The narrative was changing from scandal to redemption, from conflict to growth. Even Olivia was finding her way to a better story. Martha arrived at noon with lunch and contracts. Saw the interview, she said, unpacking Thai food. Thoughts? It took courage to be that public with her failures. Think it's genuine? Does it matter? She's saying the right things. Maybe eventually she'll believe them. Very zen of you. Very strategic of me. A public apology from the Rivers family helps stabilize their company's reputation, which helps our investment. Martha laughed. And in here I thought you were going soft. Never. Just practical. We worked through lunch, reviewing the renewable energy deal, discussing the European expansion, planning the next quarter's acquisitions. Business as usual, except for the occasional interruption from journalists wanting comments on Olivia's interview. No comment. I instructed Elena to tell them all. The story speaks for itself. By evening, I was home, preparing for a quiet night when my doorbell rang. I checked the security camera, a delivery person with an enormous bouquet of flowers. The card read, "To Grace Porter, thank you for the lesson in dignity. May I someday deserve to truly be your daughter-in-law." Olivia. I stared at the card, then at the flowers, simple white roses, elegant without being ostentatious. A far cry from the overwhelming displays at the wedding. I texted Nathan, "Your ex-fiancé sent flowers." "I know." She asked if it would be appropriate. I said you'd appreciate the gesture, not the grandness. She's learning. Maybe. Time will tell. Sunday dinner became a master class in empire building. Nathan arrived with his notebook and eager questions. We sat at my dining table, the same one where I'd made those early desperate plans, and I walked him through the journey. "First rule," I said, pouring wine. "Information is currency. The more you know that others don't, the better your position." He wrote diligently. "Is that why you stayed anonymous?" "Partly. Also because being underestimated is a strategic advantage. When people think you're powerless, they show their true selves. Like Olivia did." "Exactly. She gave me valuable information about her character. That informed my decision to let the situation play out rather than intervening early. You could have told her who you were at any time, and missed the opportunity to see how she'd treat someone she saw as beneath her. That would have been short-sighted." We talked for hours about leveraging debt, about reading market trends, about the delicate balance between aggression and patience in acquisitions. Nathan absorbed it all, asking sharp questions that made me proud. "Second rule," I continued. "Build your team carefully. Martha isn't just my lawyer. She's my strategic partner. Elena isn't just my assistant. She's my information filter. Choose people who complement your weaknesses." "What are your weaknesses?" I smiled. "I can be too patient sometimes, too willing to wait for the perfect moment. Martha pushes me when I need pushing." "And personally, what are your personal weaknesses?" "I compartmentalize too much. I should have shared more with you over the years. Not the money, necessarily, but the thinking behind it. The strategies. The victories. We're fixing that now," he pointed out. "Yes, better late than never." As the evening wound down, Nathan closed his notebook. "This is incredible, Mom. Like getting an MBA in one dinner. We've barely scratched the surface. This was just philosophy. Next time, we'll do practical applications. Next Sunday. Every Sunday if you want." He hugged me goodbye, and I felt the last piece of the puzzle click into place. The empire was public, the secrets revealed, but now I had something better, the chance to pass on what I'd learned, to teach my son not just how to build, but why. Monday's board meeting brought unexpected news. William Chin opened with projections that made even my optimistic estimates look conservative. "The publicity has accelerated our growth beyond all models," he reported. "We're seeing deal flow from sectors that previously ignored us. The combination of your revealed identity and our track record is opening doors we didn't even know existed." "Sustainability is key," I reminded them. "Growth without foundation is just a bubble waiting to burst." Agreed. Which is why we're recommending strategic expansion rather than aggressive acquisition. Build on our strengths, shore up our weaknesses. It was exactly what I would have proposed. My board was learning, evolving, thinking beyond the quarterly reports to long-term success. "There's one more thing," William added. "We've received an interesting proposal. The city wants to partner with us on a major redevelopment project. Low-income housing mixed with commercial space, sustainable design, community integration. It's not our usual play, but it fits our values," I finished. "Send me the proposal. If the numbers work, we'll make it work." After the meeting, Martha pulled me aside. "Community development? That's new. Everything's new now. Might as well use our visibility for something meaningful. The bitter old hag builds affordable housing. I like the narrative shift. Just the CEO now. The other title's been retired. Tuesday brought the Women in Leadership Summit. 2,000 faces looking up at me, waiting for wisdom I wasn't sure I possessed. But I thought of Nathan with his notebook, of Olivia learning hard lessons, of Charles Rivers discovering respect, and found my voice. 10 years ago, I sat at my kitchen table with an insurance check and a choice. I began. I could survive or I could thrive. I could be visible or I could be effective. I chose effectiveness. I told them about the early days, the dismissive investors, the assumptions and underestimations. But more importantly, I told them about the strategies, how to read a room, how to leverage information, how to build quietly while others boasted loudly. Recognition is not the goal, I said, warming to my theme. Results are the goal. Recognition is just noise that sometimes follows results. Don't chase noise. Chase impact. The questions afterward were sharp, intelligent, hungry. These women wanted more than inspiration. They wanted practical tools. I gave them what I could, remembering my own hunger for real knowledge in those early days. One last question, the moderator said. You were recently called a bitter old hag in a very public setting. How do you respond to that kind of disrespect? The room went quiet, waiting. By refusing to become one, I said simply. Bitterness is a choice. I chose building instead. The person who said those words has publicly apologized and is working to become better. That's growth. Meanwhile, I run a multi-billion-dollar company that employs thousands and creates value across multiple sectors. That's impact. Which matters more, the insult or the empire? The applause was thunderous, but I barely heard it. I was thinking of Sunday dinners with Nathan, of white roses from a chastened young woman, of Charles Rivers learning respect the hard way. Wednesday brought another surprise. My assistant knocked, looking amused. Ms. Porter, there's a young woman here who says she's starting a business and wants 5 minutes of your time. No appointment, just determination. I thought of myself 10 years ago, desperate and determined. Send her in. The woman who entered was maybe 25, wearing a suit that didn't quite fit right, carrying a battered laptop. She reminded me of someone, though I couldn't place who. Ms. Porter, thank you for seeing me. I'm Anna Chun, no relation to Martha. I have a startup idea, and I've been told you're the only investor who might understand it. You have 3 minutes. Impress me. She did. Her idea was smart, a platform connecting women-owned businesses with supply chain opportunities in male-dominated industries. She'd done her research, knew her numbers, understood her market. Why me? I asked when she finished. There are other investors. Because you built an empire while letting people think you were nothing special. That's the kind of strategic thinking I need to learn. I don't just want funding, I want mentorship. Bold. I liked bold. Send me a full proposal. If it's as good as your pitch, we'll talk. She left glowing, and I saw myself in her excitement. The cycle continuing, builders helping builders, empires spawning empires. Elena knocked again. Your son's here. Says it's important. Nathan entered looking serious but not upset. Mom, I have something to tell you. Sit. Talk. I've been offered a position at a startup. Less money than my current job, but more opportunity. They want me to head their financial strategy division. And you want my advice? I want your blessing. It's risky, but... He smiled. I learned from the best that calculated risks are how empires begin. Then you have my blessing, and my support if you need it. Just your wisdom, Sunday dinners, and maybe a reference if they call. Done. He left lighter than he'd entered, and I felt the future reshaping itself. My son building his own path. The empire I'd created spawning new ventures, new possibilities. Thursday's mail brought one last surprise. A handwritten letter from a name I didn't recognize. Dear Miss Porter, you don't know me, but I was at the Rivers wedding. I'm Olivia's cousin, one of the ones who laughed when she called you that name. I wanted to apologize, but more than that, I wanted to thank you. Watching you handle that situation with such grace, then learning who you really were, it changed something in me. I've been coasting on my family's name and money, contributing nothing, building nothing. Your example woke me up. I'm starting business school in the fall. I want to build something real, something that matters. Thank you for showing me that it's possible and that it starts with how we treat people, not what we inherit. With deep respect, Catherine Rivers, I filed the letter with the others I'd started receiving. Women inspired to build, young people reconsidering their values, even a few established CEOs admitting they needed to rethink their approach to leadership. The bitter old hag comment had become a catalyst, transforming from insult to inspiration. Strange how the worst moments sometimes led to the best outcomes. Friday afternoon, I stood in my office, looking out at the city I'd quietly conquered. Martha knocked and entered without waiting. Final numbers for the week, she said, handing me a report. Up 12% across all holdings. The renewable energy acquisition is approved. The community development project is moving forward. And you have 17 speaking requests for next month. Decline them all. I've said what I needed to say. Back to the shadows, back to the work. The real work happens in conference rooms, not on stages. Fair enough. She paused at the door. Grace, for what it's worth, I think you handled this whole thing perfectly. From the wedding to the reveal to the aftermath. You turned catastrophe into opportunity. I had good teachers, I said, thinking of David, of early mentors, of every challenge that had shaped me. No, Martha said firmly. You had good instincts. The teachers just helped you trust them. After she left, I returned to my desk, to the work that never ended. But now it felt different, not a burden, but a legacy. Not just an empire, but an example. My phone buzzed. Nathan, startup said yes. Celebration dinner Sunday after our lesson. Absolutely. Proud of you. Learn from the best. See you Sunday. I smiled, imagining the lessons yet to come, the strategies yet to share, the empire yet to build. The world knew Grace Porter now, not as a bitter old hag, but as a builder, a teacher, a force to be reckoned with. And I was just getting started. The sun set over San Francisco Bay, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber. Somewhere out there, Anna Chin was probably refining her proposal. Catherine Rivers was preparing for business school. Olivia was learning the hard lessons of humility. Charles was discovering that respect wasn't tied to net worth. And me, I was exactly where I'd always been, at my desk, building tomorrow on the foundation of today. The only difference was that now the world could watch me do it. Let them watch. Let them learn. Let them understand that empires aren't built on cruelty or condescension, but on strategy, patience, and the absolute refusal to be diminished by anyone's small thinking. The bitter old hag was dead, buried under a decade of strategic victories. In her place stood Grace Porter, CEO, mother, mentor, builder of empires, and shaper of futures. And she was just getting started. As I shut down my computer and prepared to leave for the weekend, I thought about the journey from that kitchen table to this corner office, from widow to CEO, from secret to celebrated. It hadn't been the path I'd planned, but it had been the path I'd needed. Every insult had become fuel. Every underestimation had become opportunity. Every moment of being unseen had prepared me for the moment of being revealed. The elevator carried me down through the building I'd built, past the businesses I'd saved, toward the future I was still creating. in my pocket, my phone buzzed with messages. Opportunities, congratulations, requests for wisdom I was still learning to share. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Sunday would bring dinner with Nathan and another lesson in empire building. Next week would bring the next acquisition, the next strategic move, the next chance to build something lasting. But tonight I would go home to my modest Oakland condo, pour a glass of wine, and toast the journey. To David, who'd believed in me before I believed in myself. To Nathan, who was finding his own path to greatness. To Martha, who'd been my partner in this unlikely adventure. Even to Olivia, who'd inadvertently given me the gift of perfect timing for my reveal. And to myself, the woman who once stayed silent to keep the peace, but finally learned that silence can be power and grace can be the sharpest form of revenge. Because sometimes life's cruelest insults become the spark that ignites your greatest victory. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think about how strength often hides behind quiet smiles, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more real, powerful stories of dignity, justice, and second chances to life. See you in the next story.